One person is working for 10 different companies and he's making money 10 times because he's employed AI. And he's been successfully able to fraud the interview system.
We got burned for about 150,000.
Why are these companies having this problem?
They might be a junior engineer, but they're going to sound like a staff engineer. The newer deepfake models that are coming out, frankly, they look incredible. On a lot of them, it's almost indistinguishable.
It's a world of deepfakes where the threats are looking like immersive objects, like immersive environments, immersive worlds. So is this like a new field which cybersecurity should be looking at? Hello and welcome to another fantastic episode of Pitch Cafe podcast. This is a place where we bring cream of the talent from Silicon Valley and around the globe. Today I'm extremely fortunate to have with me one of the cream of the talent from Silicon Valley's Cerebral Valley. This is the place everybody's flocking to find the top AI talent. The top VCs, the top scientists, the top builders have found a haven here where they sit and discuss about things in AI which are not talked about. There are a lot of hackathons. There are places where just people assemble to build stuff. And we have with us a founder who is endorsed by Cerebral Valley for an amazing deep fake detection startup for interviews. Have you thought about this? This is just coming. A lot of interviews are happening online. Talent is remote. How do you know you're hiring the right people? There have been some crazy cases where one person is working for 10 different companies and he's making money 10 times because he's employed AI and he's been successfully able to fraud the interview system. Big companies are after our founder, our guest of honor today. So, Michael Kuczynski, welcome to Pitch Cafe podcast.
Hey, Vida, how are you? Great to be here.
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. And so great to have you here. Michael, thanks for doing this. As soon as I saw your profile, your interview, I thought I should bring you on. Tell us what you do at Interview Guard and how is it you're also managing to be a CTO at Bootstrapping Ventures. Tell us all about Michael.
Yeah, absolutely. So over at Interview Guard, I'm our CTO. I manage our entire technical team. I've been on since day one. It was actually some of my team from over at Bootstrapping Ventures. And the entire thing started from actually a few bad hires that we had over there where back, I think it was back in 2023, 2024. We made a few DevOps hires where during the entire interview process, they were fantastic. All the way through, they were incredible. So it only made sense to hire them. Then they finally get onboarded. Something just didn't seem right. But the work was mostly there. So it's like, okay, maybe they just need some time to ramp up. And the longer it went on, it just, something just kept feeling wrong. And, as we kept going on, something was just bothering me about it. So I actually, what's the right way to say? I tried to call him out on it essentially. Where once we had an event in 24 where we got everyone out. Where a lot of things that he's really confident on. When you talk with him remotely, you try to talk him in person, and he's lost. He's completely lost. It's like what is going on here? And that's actually where we actually got him to admit that, oh yeah, that basically all the work from the start of the interview process through actually working, everything was just 100% AI. And they were just, seeing how long till they got caught.
This is so shocking. So, Michael, put a number on this phase. How much did you lose in this fraud experience?
That one in particular, we got burned for about 150,000.
Oh my God.
And
That's
we had
colossal.
a couple other cases where it wasn't nearly as bad, but still 50,000 here, 80,000 there, and it adds up really quick.
Yeah, and it's not fun when you're a startup trying to bootstrap. Every dollar is so valuable. So tell me, Michael, you could have built anything. You could have just built a small application for this and moved on, but you're doing a full-fledged startup. And some of the biggest companies in Silicon Valley are your customers, and not just here, but outside. What are you building at Interview Guard and why is it so important? And just explain more about your company.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, with anything that we build, everything is always built out of necessity, where even if nobody else uses it, at the very least, we know that we're going to get value out of it and it's going to be an important thing. And actually, one of the things with Interview Guard in particular is we actually started building it in early 2025, right around the time where things like Cluely or Interview Coder, they started to get pretty large. And we had the idea, actually, after checking those products out, we noticed that a lot of the tools in this space, they really closely resembled actually video game cheating in the way that they hide from screen shares, avoid detection, this and that. And actually a lot of people on our team have experience in video game anti-cheats. So one thing that we thought was, why don't we just, incorporate that same kind of solution that gets used in the video game industry over here? And as we started building it out, we actually had a lot of talks with senior engineers and hiring managers over at AWS, Microsoft,
Well,
Oracle, and a few others. And every single person that we talked to, it was across the board. Everything was, yes, please. We have this problem every single day, and there's not a great, there's no great solution. So as soon as we were pitching the idea to them, they were like, yes, absolutely, we're in.
so
So that
Michael,
kind of gave us the validation we needed to, go all in for it. And now that we actually have it, fully launched, we have customers onboarding, every single day. Even just last week, I had one of our newer customers who onboarded recently. They're a $500 million company, publicly listed. Their CEO gave me a call and he's like, "Oh my gosh, Michael, this is the greatest thing I have ever seen." And I'm just,
amazing.
that's the kind of thing that gets you excited.
Amazing. So, Michael, why are these companies having this problem? Give us a sample of why they're so delighted to use your product. Give us a real life scenario. Let's
Yeah,
experience
absolutely.
it and see what your product actually does.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the biggest reasons that it's so important is when it comes to hiring, being able to do the entire hiring process remotely is so important. Just you have so much speed and velocity and just convenience to be able to essentially interview people from globally. Your talent pool is significantly wider than, let's say 20 miles around San Francisco. There are thousands and thousands of engineers who live frankly in the middle of nowhere, who
Yeah.
you're never going to reach those people if your entire hiring process is, we need someone, within 20 miles of our campus. So one of the main things that especially is important with something like this is when you do want to reach that global talent, the way that people can cheat on interviews is it's way too easy. Frankly, there's I think my list is about 115 different tools that will give you real-time AI solutions. It'll listen to audio, read your screen, everything in between, and
Mm.
within 2 seconds to a question getting asked, it'll give you a full write-up of, here's how you respond, here are rebuttals, here's all the information you need. You have a technical problem given to you, here's the entire solution, start to finish. And you'll have someone come in who, they might be a junior engineer, but they're going to sound like a staff engineer all day, and you're going to want to hire them. And then on top of that, there's also the newer deepfake models that are coming out. Frankly, they look incredible. On a lot of them, it's almost indistinguishable that it's not a real person on the other end. And then frankly, we also, we see the problem all the time. As this is mostly a problem in the bigger, FANG companies, the bigger finance companies, where they have adversarial countries having people trying to get into, Amazon, Google, some of the larger banks as well, and just pulling information out, holding their data for ransom, whatever it may be. And then on some more niche options, there's even, there are professional interviewers who will, for I know a few people personally who for $500 they will clear an interview for you and get you essentially hired anywhere
Oh
because they
my,
are absolutely brilliant.
Michael, this is an entire industry. This is this is like you're describing to me the phishing attacks in the typical cybersecurity industry. But this is a new world. It's a world of deep fakes where the threats are looking like immersive objects, like immersive environments, immersive worlds. So is this like a new field which cybersecurity should be looking at? Because if you're getting to banks with a deep fake, that's a huge problem.
I think definitely this is not something that really happened, let's say 10 years ago. definitely since about 5 or 6 years ago, there's definitely been an upswing in this, and it's just getting progressively easier and easier. There's more and more tools that people are using. There's more advanced avenues that these bad actors are trying to use to essentially just insert themselves into companies. And I mean, some of them are not nearly as bad, but I mean, I know there's a little bit of an anecdote. I mean, one of the companies that we recently onboarded, they're a trillion-dollar company. So yeah, essentially this company had someone who was in a relatively high-paying role. It was probably a $300,000 a year role. They, as far as the company was concerned, they were a Harvard graduate living in the US. Everything was all great. And then one of our employees who they were working with that person where there's something's not quite right. So they went to a different VP, and they essentially offered all of the money that they've made in the last year. They will give it to you if this person is in the US and who they say they are. And it ended up turning out that the person was in Northern Africa, completely fake all the way through. Everything that they thought that the person was.
What a shock that is for a large company and such a huge reputation at stake. These things, when they go out of hand, that it costs the company's reputation billions of dollars. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's not as simple as just, how much you pay the person. There's the amount of damage that just one of these bad actors can do it's honestly pretty unmeasurable.
Yeah, and the
So
emotional damage, the shock it causes, the time to recover from the shock, because people are emotionally shaken. And so, this is an incredible service that you're offering. So, I have a lot of questions about this, but more than that, I'm fascinated. You use a video game framework. Why do you pick a video game framework? What aspects of the video game framework are you borrowing into this?
so it's actually really interesting in the video game space. The way that they've been solving similar problems, they've been doing this for nearly 20 years, where there's so many different examples of ways that they're detecting anything that tries to hide a window, like Cluely or Interview Coder or similar tools like that. Even things as simple as device verification, where if you have two keyboards attached,
Yeah.
it can determine which inputs are coming from which keyboard. So we
Wow.
actually use similar things like that, where we can detect if inputs are coming through a remote desktop, a virtual machine, the AI tool is writing for you, or even you have a second person behind the desk with a second keyboard and mouse, and they're clearing a
Wow.
technical for you. We'd be
Wow.
able to detect something like that in the same way. And then beyond that, there's essentially, I'd say there's like a 95% correlation in the way that most interview fraud happens that aligns, it's almost one to one with how video game cheating works.
Yeah.
Across there's obviously hundreds of different ways, but they're all they generally fall into the same buckets.
Yeah.
So that kind of gave us the idea of, why don't we just, essentially do the exact same thing.
Yeah.
That because there are many other solutions in this space that they all take very different approaches, but the thing with all those various different approaches is none of them are 100%. There's no there's no silver bullet for it. But at the very least, if we do go this route, it essentially does let us get to a point where we might as well be 100%, and we have proof to back it up. So
Yeah.
we can say exactly, hey, Interview Coder was running. It was masquerading as System D from this start time to this end time, and that's a very clear signal to where if you were interviewing someone, you can immediately say, hey, this happened.
Yeah.
Rather than, yeah, there's a 70% chance that they might have been using some tool like this, which that's really useful to know. But at the same time, if I'm hiring someone, I really want it to be a fair process.
Yeah.
So something where, if it says 70%, but I actually wasn't, that would, that's, to me, getting that wrong is unacceptable.
Yeah.
So a lot of that has always been, our North Star has always been, we want to make sure that, we're able to give a clear signal with real evidence of this happened. It's black and white. Either they're a bad actor or they're not, nowhere in between.
Yeah, wonderful. So, Michael, I'm looking at the success rate of your interview tool. It looks pretty deterministic, and we all know that AI hallucinates, and people hesitate to use it for deterministic tasks. So, what kind of company are you? Are you an AI company, or are you really not an AI company? Are you more deep fake detection company, or what kind of company are you?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're not really an AI company. So for this product in particular, we've made a lot of conscious choices to specifically not use AI.
Yes, sir.
Where we had there was a number of times where we've honestly considered putting it in, but at the end of the day, if an AI gets it right 97% of the time, personally, on for our team, that 3% of the time where it gets it wrong, that at the moment there's just no way around that. That alone is unacceptable on
Yeah.
our end.
Yeah.
So
So that's the narrative I'm hearing from a lot of seasoned industry experts. I just got off the call with a CIO, and this is exactly how he speaks. So tell us more about how you do it differently. Like, what are the specific aspects where you avoid AI and you feel AI is more a threat? And yeah,
there are some things that the other solutions do better, and there's some things that we do better. And I think honestly, the best way to go about it is actually using a combination of both. Where a lot of the other platforms in this space, they do things where it's analyzing a lot of your behavior. It's looking for heuristic signals. So, let's say I'm standing here and you ask me a question, and I want to take a second to think about it. Which in an interview, it's a high stress environment where you really want to make sure that you're answering a question the right way. But something like you might just naturally be looking around. You might be a little bit neurodivergent. Things like that. Happen a lot. One of the biggest problems that those other tools have is a lot of those things that are not honestly they're natural things and they're pretty mundane. That is enough to hit a red flag, and you're going to be marked as a cheater. And in an interview where you thought you did a great job, that company has written you off in 5 seconds for something that's completely not your fault. I will say though, there are times where that kind of analysis is really helpful. Where let's say they have a phone right in front of their monitor that is running something like that, where an inside tool isn't going to detect it, or some external other factor. Something like that is really helpful just to kind of get a sanity check out of it. But at the end of the day, we really wanted something that it just gives a clear, we didn't want to leave room for errors for like that. But I do think having those things together actually does give a much better signal overall.
yeah, I agree with you. And I think you're doing the right thing by choosing AI where it really matters and not using it in all use cases. Because I feel from my conversation with many experts that the bubble is bursting, the hype cycle is ending, people are coming back to more real use cases. They're not all AI enabled. They could be heading towards AI first, but they're not all AI enabled. Now, tell me about the pre interview verification. Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, right now we only handle during the interview. We're actually in the process of a partnership building out a secondary product for the pre-interview process, where it's essentially a combination of our product along with two others, where as soon as somebody applies for a job, it's going to be able to immediately schedule essentially a qualification interview with them. That it's only about a minute long, where upon joining, it just does some quick verification to check, are you a real person? Are you the person that you say you are? Are you where you're supposed to be? And a lot of things like that, where there's I think we have about 60 different signals that we're in that 1 minute that we're able to generate alone, to kind of give a company a thumbs up or a thumbs down of, okay, this person, things line up. You know,
Wow.
their resume says that they were at XYZ. These external services verify that they were there. They're in the right place where they say they are. They're not a deep fake. Everything kind of lines up. It gives you a good sanity check.
Yeah. So, Michael, does this cause any privacy concerns for you? Because now I feel you're going from the HR tool area to the cybersecurity, or your cybersecurity threat detection and verification and prevention kind of. You're moving into
Yeah.
newer waters here. So, does it cause any security concern when people use your tool? Do they raise security concerns?
For Interview Guard in particular, I would say no. And that's mostly just in the sense that for Interview Guard in particular, it doesn't record any audio, any video. It doesn't store anything. Actually, the only thing that does end up getting stored is just a log of, at this time, X tool was running for X amount of time, and things like that. And that's actually one of the most important things with that is we actually wanted Interview Guard to do. There was a few extra features that we were actually building around, where we had to pivot away during development, actually, when we were having a lot of conversations with AWS, Oracle, Microsoft, and a few others where we were essentially explaining those things, and they said immediately, that's a no-go. That is
Mhm.
something that if you guys store anything like that, we have to be out,
Yeah.
day one. And it's less of a direct concern, but it's more of they don't want to be in no one wants to be in a situation where you ask someone to do something and it compromise their data or their security.
Yeah.
Which honestly it makes 100% sense.
Yeah, there was this whole wave of employee engagement which shot up during the pandemic. And people used to track the biometrics to see how engaged an employee is. And after some time, people started raising concerns that either they're inaccurate or they are invading the privacy of the employee. Like they're being scanned, their faces are being scanned when they don't want to be seen or they don't wish to be scanned, you know? So I think you're doing it the right way. You're not having a log of it. And so this is incredibly exciting. And you're not even bought into the AI story, the AI narrative. You're doing your thing and pretty deterministic way. That being said, let's move on to a few quick questions. What is the most absurd and deep fake you've seen lately? Like it's totally absurd and it's kind of like a cheating tactic. Actually seen somebody pull it off and you'd be like, what? Did they really do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm gonna give you two examples. One of them I think is just a little bit funny, and the other one is a little bit more absurd.
Uh-huh.
But there was actually one case, it was about 2 weeks ago, where one of our customers essentially they were running an interview with someone where they essentially were flagged on everything from top to bottom when it came to every deepfake detection. Where it's like, what is going on here? And it was honestly really funny. They were using deepfake software to deepfake themselves.
Oh my God.
Where it was they were using a deepfake to use as a deepfake of themselves, just to, touch themselves up a little bit, as well as make their background look a little bit nicer. And it was just like, that seems like the most absurd way to use it. It wasn't in a bad way at all, but I thought it was just the funniest thing ever, where they asked them to turn off and it looked almost exactly the same. Where it's just like the slightest bit different. Like, why were you even doing that?
This one was in mathematical jargon, there was a false positive.
Yeah. Well, technically it was correct, but just the way that they were using it, I would have never expected someone to. But it was the smallest difference ever. You would not even believe it unless you saw it, where you could just barely tell
Yeah.
that it happened.
So I'll remember this deep faking the deep fake. So the real person, totally deep faking the real person. That's
Yeah,
incredible. My
I
choice.
think that's a really funny way to do it. And then one of the more absurd ways that I've seen actually recently, one of the most, I really didn't think that this one was around as much these days. But one of the things that I notice a lot is actually people just having a second person in the room with a second keyboard and mouse. Just to clear a technical. Where you always see, I see it all the time of, like, there's some memes on LinkedIn or on Reddit of them having a second person where they're, pretending to type while they have a second person, under the desk doing it for them. And it's pretty surprising how often that happens.
Yeah.
I always thought, that was like, haha, that's a funny thing, might happen once or twice here or there. But it turns out that actually happens more often than not. I'm
Yeah.
not sure if that's a case where they know that they're going to be in a more proctored environment using
Yeah.
interview guards, so they're trying to find a way around it.
Yeah.
Which, unfortunately for them, we also have detection for things like that.
Yeah.
But I always think that it's really surprising to me, where I thought that was going to be something that, we might see it, once a month here or there, and then it's like, wow, at one company they saw it 6 times in 1 week. It's like, oh
Oh my God. Okay. So people really are learning this. It's spreading fast. This way of cheating, right?
oh
Yeah.
yeah.
The bad actors are getting smarter with AI. Is all I can say. And yeah, people like you are doing it with less use of AI. Imagine if you got hands on deterministic quality AI. What would you be capable of? So
Oh,
okay.
it'd be
So
it'd be incredible.
it'll be incredible. I
I'm
know you
I'm
can.
I'm excited. I know it's gonna get there. We're
Yeah.
not there yet, but we will get there.
Yeah, I think it'll be headed to simulations. You'll be capable of creating entire environments which can fight back this deepfake. Because deepfake is getting immersive, you are also going to get immersive. So that being said, your tool is so powerful. It can be used to analyze sales calls, real-time customer sentiment analysis, and so many such scenarios where the strike rate of success can increase. So tell me, are you planning to do something different or just your heads down focused only on interviews?
Right now, the main focus is on interviews, but we do have in our roadmap, we actually have a few members of the team who they're essentially clocked out of the interview space. They're purely just focused on where else can what other problems can we solve with this?
Yeah,
Because after we built it out, we actually realized that there's a lot that we can do with it,
yeah,
where it doesn't need to be so hyper focused.
yeah,
Where one in particular is just something similar, like you said, where it's actually just running during any meeting and just in the background, checking for things like this. And then also kind of a mix of where we can actually pull in some of the aspects of these cheating tools and
yeah.
actually bring them in. So now we can add, we can give people live coaching, on a sales call where we're also, monitoring for 100 things on the side and just essentially just making a lot more out of the tools that you're already using.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to, take some classes online. And for booking the class used to cost $5,000. It was run by an individual. For the sales call, he would send another individual. That guy would use a software. When he spoke through that software, his voice would be so good and compelling. Like, I'll be like, I could listen to this voice forever. And then he would use AI to detect my sentiments and he would close the deal. So, and then as soon as the deal is closed, that person's voice goes away. And when I call him back, his voice is different or his number has changed. So, but it was a total legit company. We were informed about all of this. But I just thought, wow, a person's voice could change with AI and you could make them close a deal for $5,000. That is something, huh?
Yeah, no, it's incredible.
Yeah, yeah.
The scary thing is when people use that exact same thing to close themselves on getting a job.
Exactly. Or they may ask people to send money.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, those
there,
are
there, there are 100 cases where people can use things the wrong way. That's one of the really scary things with, as these tools get so much more powerful and they're so
yeah,
much more accessible,
yeah.
there's a lot of great, genuine use cases for it, but
Mm,
then there's just as many, if not more, use cases for bad actors.
yeah, wonderful. And Michael, which tool do you think is overhyped in AI right now? Like, what is a one AI trend or tool which people are wasting money on? You just totally see it, but you can't reach enough people to tell them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a few different ones that I would say. And it's not exactly that they're overhyped. I think they're hyped up in the wrong ways.
Okay.
So for one, I believe in the voice AI space. We've built out enterprise voice AI solutions in the past, and one of the biggest problems is everyone in that space will sell you the sun and the stars, the moon and everything in between, where it's just as good as a human, it's perfect, this and that. But the biggest problem is I think this problem actually applies in a lot of cases where the AI does a fantastic job. It
Yeah.
does everything beautifully, but the surrounding tech around it is not there yet.
Mm.
So in that space in particular, whether it be voice transcription for voice to text, or even the other way around, where they're really good, but especially for voice to text,
Yeah.
even the flagship models, the absolute best that you're gonna get, they
Yeah.
have a 95% accuracy rate,
Yeah.
which that sounds really good, but that 5% turns out to be really important. And getting that wrong alone it's enough that it's not worth the risk for a lot of people.
Yep.
It's really close.
Yep.
And then conversely, on the development side, as every single week, Anthropic is dropping the absolute most incredible things that you've ever seen. Whether it just be Claude Code, Cowork. I saw the other week they released another one for essentially checking for security vulnerabilities when
Yep.
building something with AI assistance. And
All those.
honestly, they're all
Yeah.
so cool. But I do think that there are some glaring issues with it. And one of the biggest issues, which I think applies to every AI tool and every AI model, is the AIs are trained to make the user happy and get there as quickly as possible. And the problem with that is it will just lie to you and
Yeah.
it will cut corners. And it's honestly really scary on some of the ones where that happens, where I know I've done probably, I think, 50 or 60 audits at this point for people, where one of which, they built out a SaaS product fully using AI. They're making 100K a month. They're doing fantastic. And then within 25 minutes of using it, I had access to every single customer's, all of their information, their billing details, their social security numbers, this and that. And it's like,
Huge
you built
security
you built
problem.
you built something cool here that clearly solves a problem that you have this many people paying, but you've also built a bomb where you have so much lawsuit liability here that you can't do this. That's one of my biggest concerns at the moment. As things, you can build things so much faster, and for an experienced engineer who they know what to look out for, generally they'll catch a lot of these things and be able to fix it, or be able to guide the AI to fix it.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit worrying for me when I do see people just 100% trusting it, where I cannot tell you the amount of times someone has told me it's absolutely secure. And the reason they say that is Claude said it's secure when they asked. And then I have not had one where it's taken more than 40 minutes to break it in a catastrophic way.
Yeah.
So
No, this is crazy, insane. I think your insights are really cool. No, I haven't heard people go into this much of depth talking about using these very hyped up tools right now. So the enterprise is still safe. They are not just adding on tools because of the buzz. They have people like you auditing tools, and there are checks and balances. So it's a
yeah.
good thing. And the one thing I'm strongly seeing is the buzz is reducing. The AI implementation cycle has enlightened people on where they can go wrong. So we are not yet there. We need a lot more work before we buy into AI. Yeah.
But I think we are on a path where I'm sure in the next, even if you compare it to how things looked, I remember when, what was it, I think GPT-2 went into open beta,
Yeah.
and I had access to that. It was awful. It
Mm.
was the worst thing you have ever seen. It was almost borderline unusable. And that was only, what has it been? Roughly 4 years?
Yeah.
And compare that to what we see now, if we look just 3 years out, everything that we see now, I mean, what we see now might look like how GPT-2 looked, 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So
like
we
we
have
we
to
are
be.
we are on a pace where it's gonna get exciting,
Yeah.
but I do think people need to temper their expectations a little bit,
Also.
because if you
Mhm.
jump too far into the deep end, you're gonna get yourself burned,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah. Especially AI is expensive. It's still in the disruptive phase, so it's guzzling a lot of money, a lot of cash and investment. That being said, you are so operating in the cybersecurity space, and cybersecurity is always ahead of the technology. You build a technology, cybersecurity guys have to think so much ahead because you're protecting it. You can't protect something you don't know if it exists or how it moves, right? So I think
Exactly.
that's why your insights are a little ahead of time, but in good faith and for good reasons. So yeah, so Michael, last question as we wrap up. Why are you still bootstrapped? You could have so many VCs drooling over you, and you got some really big logos on your resume. When it's time to talk, I'm sure you will. But why are you still bootstrapped?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the main reason that we're still bootstrapped at the moment is we really want to just make sure that we can keep true to our North Star,
Yeah.
where we've had, we've gone the VC route the past in the we've gone the VC route in the past before,
Yeah.
and it's really great, but a lot of the times you kind of lose sight of that North Star that you have,
Mm.
where we really want to make sure now that we're in an opportunity where we don't need, we, or at least right this moment, we don't need that VC funding, where we can just focus on building the best product that we can, solving the problem, and just
Yeah.
making sure that, we stay true to our values on that.
Yeah.
Where once we find the right, the right person, if they align with us on our North Star and where we want to go with it,
Yeah.
I'm sure there's going to be a partnership to be had there. But
Yeah.
at the
And
moment,
hmm,
that's one of the biggest things on the entire team of, we really want to just make sure that, at the end of the day, we're staying true to this is what we want to do. This is how we're going to get there.
yeah.
if they're on board for that, well, hop on the ride. Let's go.
Yeah, wonderful. So, Michael, do you have a founding team? Do you have a co-founder? What does your team look like? Are you lean and mean, or are you growing? How does the interview guard team look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have 6 people on our engineering team currently, most of which are our founding members, where we have some of our engineers come from, one of them actually built the entire software stack for the Department of Corrections of Toronto. So
Wow.
their software is basically controlling all of the prisons up in Canada over there. Another one, he's spent the last 10 years in actually the video game anti-cheat space. So he's been building things out on that end. We also have another one of our founding members, Brandon Bowski, who he also runs Bowski Ventures. Probably have 150 companies that he currently owns and is growing all of those. And then we have a few other engineers who, between the team that we've worked with, I think everyone who's on the team currently, we've all at least known each other for the last 10 to 15 years, worked on projects here and there, some professionally, some more on the hobby side.
So wonderful. So looks like you have a great team, and Cerebral Valley from Silicon Valley endorses you. So, and I like your attitude. You're bootstrapped, focused on one thing at a time, going everything right. So checking all the boxes for a great founding team. So wishing you all the best, and I hope to have you back again with a more exciting stuff from Interview Guard. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much, Peter.
Wonderful.